Hello, everyone, and good day. My name is Wes Okeke, CEO of Headway Idea Labs. Headway supports accelerators who actually support startups. And Headway supports accelerators by providing them with programming, which we call the Investor Readiness Series. And we're able to provide accelerators programming for pre-acceleration. So this helps with the pipeline of startups that go into accelerators, the investor readiness core part of what Headway provides. And then last but not least, the post-accelerator program, which focuses on capital raising. But today, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce to you guys Darja. Darja is from Dealum, one of Headway's partners when it comes to investors and the investor ecosystem and network. Welcome, Darja.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm already excited about our chat.
Yes, just so you all know, Darja and I did do a webinar recently, which will be published soon. It was a live webinar, but we'll hopefully see that in the next week or so on our website or in Dealum's website or through our social media platforms. But again, thank you again, Darja. I'm going to start out with a few questions, and just so that people can get a little bit background knowledge of who you are. But if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how your journey into the startup ecosystem began.
Oh, that's a long story. I've done quite a few things along the way. I will start at the very beginning, and then I will also introduce Dealum as this is my latest adventure. To be honest, I accidentally stumbled into a startup ecosystem almost 10 years ago now. I joined a company that for some reason were calling themselves a startup. I didn't know what it is. I just knew I needed a job and they sounded cool and I joined. And whilst I was there, I was eighth to join. We went through YC, which is a good success for an Estonian company because we're quite small and we've tried to get there many times, but we did get in there. And when I left about a year later, we have raised our seed round. And now this company is one of Estonian unicorns, as I mentioned yesterday. They do identity verification. They're called Veriff. So I think a few of your listeners might know them because they're quite active in US as well and raised quite a few different rounds. But when I decided it's time to move on after applying to YC, Accelerator sounded kind of cool to me. And I found one local one, which was quite small, and they weren't actually hiring. So I emailed them and I said, it's like, oh, I'm this and that. I went through YC with my previous company. I would be curious to know if you have any positions. Uh, Fast forward, I spent 5 years with them. I've done 4 acceleration programs. So I worked with founders quite closely. 2 of them were B2B SaaS and 2 of them were cybersecurity. Those are 2 very different niches, 2 very different founders. And I actually enjoyed the geeky cybers much more than B2B SaaSes. But when you work closely, because we were fully physical at the time, for 3 months, I would see their faces every day. I would call them my babies because I was taking care of everything. And after that, I moved on to scouting. And for 3 years, I did scouting. As on a background, when I joined, we were doing only 2 programs a year. When I left, it was 12 programs. Portfolio of invested startups at the moment is close to 500. And the majority of it was scouted by me because we started to grow very rapidly. And that was a very interesting learning curve. And at the time, we used Dealum as our main selection process tool for the accelerator. And that was an immense help because the motto was, if it's not on Dealum, it doesn't exist, because the volumes were in thousands. And if you didn't put a comment and you didn't process it properly according to the way we were doing things, things got out of hand because we were scouting for like 6 programs at the same time, and the team of scouts was 5 or 6 people at most. And that was intense, but it was very fun. But this intensity made me decide that it's time to move on, because it wasn't fair to founders who would tell me, it's like, oh, we're doing the most unique thing ever. And then I would mentally roll my eyes and understand that I've seen at least 3 similar startups that month. So it was time to move on. And I joined Dealum, going from customer to an employee. And currently I am holding focus on founders within the team, because we have 2 sides to the Dealum: investor and startup. I think this is a good segue to say what Dealum does. We're an investment management platform for early stage investors. We work closely, and we started with business angel groups, and then we expanded into accelerators, VCs. We work with different events, and our goal, why we're doing it, is that we're trying to create a connected ecosystem. When startup can create one application and they can submit it to many different investors, but then if they are taking part actively in the ecosystem live, then that means that application can go to pitch competitions, if events are using us, or they can apply for angel funding to accelerators. And at the same time, if there are relevant VCs for them, they can also submit applications there in one click. And for investors, our value proposition is that everything is centralized, and we are a dedicated tool that built for investors. So you don't have to build your own process using Excel's inboxes, I don't know, AI, Notion, whatnot. You have a dedicated tool, which means, well, first of all, you need to have probably bigger volumes to take the full benefit from Dealum. But we actually have customers who are quite small and who enjoy using, and we have large accelerators as Startup Wise guys, the one I worked for, who are still very active and do a lot of things. And at the beginning of this year, I decided that I miss founders, because working for Dealum, it's more about product, even though I am working actively on helping founders do better, those who are using Dealum. But I decided that I need to actually see them and see the passion and assess their ideas. And I have joined local business angel group as a deal flow manager. So now I also, again, use Dealum as a customer, and at the same time, I'm an employee. And I have to admit, in 3 years I've been here at Dealum, the platform improved immensely. This is me in a very long story, but now you know my background. I've been in the ecosystem for a very long time. I really enjoy working with founders. I really enjoy working with investors, and I really like processes. This is why I'm at Dealum and helping investors automate their workflows and have a more organized process.
No, it's good. I see you've actually have, as I would say it, entrenched yourself a bit more in the startup ecosystem. So you're supporting the startups, and at the same time supporting the investors, because that connection must take place. And in my opinion, in my years in the startup ecosystem, which is close to yours, 13 years or so, um, that's probably where the biggest gap is. And they get to the point, and they can't get any further till they connect with the investors. So that's good. Yeah, you actually uh, did a really good job with your journey. So I'm going
Thank you.
to, and this is good because it segues into the state of accelerators.
Mhm.
And from what I can gather, you've seen many different accelerator programs, and you've seen startups go through. You've obviously uh, encountered a lot of startups go through different programs. What it separates, from your opinion, the great accelerator programs from the average ones? What are some things that you feel the great ones actually do that a lot of accelerators probably don't do? And from our previous conversation, it appears that you worked for a really good accelerator.
I tend to agree with you. It was a great accelerator, and it's not just me because I worked there, I think so, but feedback from founders was also very similar to what I'm saying. They appreciate it and were happy to be part of the program and part of the community. As well, I think what separates great accelerators from more average ones is the approach. I would maybe probably put it as a mission because some accelerators do it, some accelerators, oh, how to put it properly. So some accelerators are created by governments, some are publicly funded, and then their goal is to achieve KPIs so they can receive funding and either invest, but they usually don't invest, or just to achieve KPIs so they can reapply for funding later. And that means that their goal is to achieve KPIs and not actually help founders. Great accelerators, they go in with a mission to help founders become better entrepreneurs, understand the rules of the game, because building a company is one tiny part of actually being a startup. You can build a product, you can have customers, but you need to understand, how do you fundraise, how do you talk, what of the all the lingo around startup investment and being a startup. Because I saw teams that apply for funding and they don't really understand how to present themselves, what investors are looking for. So I think what separates great from less great accelerators is the goal of why they're doing it, but also honesty, because when you have founders, you need to be honest with them, and you maybe you like them as people, but at the same time you need to be straightforward. If something doesn't work or they are doing something that you know that is truly wrong, you need to be honest with them. So you need to have the right reasons for doing it, and you need to be honest.
Sure. You know, this is funny because I've only mentioned this to a few people regarding the whole KPIs for those they operate as a nonprofit, and yeah, they're getting some sort of donation or sponsorship from a government, and some get corporate sponsorships, but those KPIs are the decision maker on how well the startup gets the resources and the attention and the support. And it's amazing you said that. I actually feel like jumping up right now because that was just my own perspective, but it's very good because you've been in this industry, and this is something that I also feel very deeply about and hope that accelerators do a better job. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've worked with a lot of accelerators that are or facilitators within and program managers, and this is what bothers them the most working for that particular accelerator, is they genuinely want to support the accelerator, but the KPIs tend to overrule their decisions and the direction they want to take with the startups in providing them what they need. Um, Two questions I
I,
want to ask, but go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I actually think this is why, you probably know, but the trend is that new accelerators appear, they do one or two programs, they disappear to never exist ever again. So, and so a few of them stick around for many years. And I think one of the reasons why accelerators don't stick around for too long is because to make this business model work, it's very hard. Running
Mm-hmm.
an accelerator is a resource intensive process. You need people, you need processes, you need tools. But at the same time, if you just optimize for KPIs and you take the human aspect out of it, you don't you don't really want to help founders be better, no founders will start applying to your accelerator, because at the end of the day, they talk and they understand if there is actual value that you provide, and then you will get customers who are who are startups. And if you don't do a good job, you don't get customers, aka startups, and then you die, because you, even if you want to help someone, you can't, because they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of the accelerators, thank you for that, that I've um, supported over the years, they will have investors there, but the investors are not um, they're not a match for the startups. But it's just having an investor there, in my opinion, gives false hope to the startups, and that's, I think, is also can be very misleading. Where do you think most accelerators unintentionally lose momentum after demo day? I don't know if you have seen this, where demo day ends and the accelerator startup connection tends to dwindle quite fast.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, again, we can go back to the KPIs. If your goal is to do an accelerator, achieve KPIs, and move on, then you don't have any incentive to actually help founders after they graduate. Where I have worked, we actually had a aftercare program, as we used to call it, because if you've done your job right and then you graduate the startup, they start fundraising the moment they leave or a few months after. And then this is when they actually use everything you have taught them. And then this is when they start getting questions. So if you are optimizing just to do a good demo day, invite all of the representatives who are decision makers to get the next funding, then obviously you're not incentivized to actually do anything after, because you don't care about startups that you have graduated. If you're an accelerator who invests, and then you need to present to your investors that your portfolio is growing, then you are incentivized to actually support them. But some of them can't really do it. Not that they can't, but if you are churning out program after program and you have a dedicated team who runs programs, then in between, they don't really have that much time, because as I said, it's a resource intensive, which means you go from one program to another and you need to focus on the new startups in the new cohort, and you don't have bandwidth to look after those who have just graduated. So either they don't have the process in place or a dedicated person who can actually support, or they optimize just for the result, and that result is just great demo day, and after that they don't really care what happens.
Yeah. When I was working, so the first 8 years or so, 8, 9 years, Headway worked directly with startups. And I realized, and this is why we switched to pivot to help accelerators, because we realized that um, the resource and the journey of a startup needs far more resources than 3 months in most cases, and sometimes more than 6 months. And so it was getting very expensive for the startup to pay Headway. And so I decided, okay, I need to strategically pull out of that. So I actually stopped receiving money from the startups and said, hey, I don't want you to pay me anymore. And I did this with multiple startups. I says, I need to find a better situation where I can support you, where you're not spending a lot of money, because it's almost as if they need a co-founder they're paying. And also I couldn't do it for free. So this is why Headway pivoted some years ago to support the accelerators. And it's a challenge. We're still working on growing our model, and it takes time, because the majority of the accelerators that you kind of mentioned are nonprofit, and that's okay. So we're taking our time getting in there, and we're strategically finding the right accelerators that have a lot more flexibility with their programming, so they can actually produce better startups. And I feel that this will eventually take root as a lot of the accelerators I've worked with, their sponsors, especially those that have corporate sponsors, the corporate sponsors are frustrated because they're sponsoring these startup accelerator programs, and they're not getting a good return. They're getting a very, very low, if not a zero return of their investment, except for some marketing. What do you think? And now, I'll switch a little bit on the investor side. What do you feel investors wish accelerators would do better? Right. So thinking of the programs, thinking of the result after demo day, putting on your investor hat and working with the investor community. What do you think investors wish accelerators would do better?
I'm sure that most of the investors agree that startups that graduate accelerators need to know how to do fundraising, because fundraising is a lengthy process that involves a lot of different steps and also a lot of different materials. If program is not giving you tools or understanding that, first of all, you need to prepare for your fundraise at least 6 months in advance, or doesn't do intros to investors as well. So, or doesn't allow you to talk to investors, even though they don't invest. So you sometimes say that you mentioned before that putting investors into the program is like showing a candy, but at the same time, they don't invest. I think it's still necessary to put investors into the program, those who know what they're doing in terms of they know that they're talking to early stage startups, but having this experience of talking to investor who asks precise questions, expects precise answers, is a good training tool. And then I would, from the accelerator who graduated the startup, I would expect that they tell them what investors are looking for, what materials they will ask, how to build a data room, how to properly present yourself, how to be clear of what you're saying. So having all of this fundraising process explained, and ideally also all of the materials prepared, so when they go out into the wild and investors start asking for pitch decks and projections and financials, and what is your cap table going to look like after, have you done your math on how every save will convert in the future. Having startups who have thought these things through and who know how to answer and actually know what it means is very valuable, and it makes startup look great in the eyes of the investor, but also makes the process go faster and easier for the startup and less stressful. Because as I mentioned before, each startup will have to talk to at least 400 different investors. Depends on the niche. Obviously, it can be a little bit more or less to get to the close of the funding round. Just prepare your startups for our fundraising.
Yeah, good. I'm realizing now that I need to, if when you get back and if you have time to squeeze you in to talk to the startups, because we Headway supporting a cohort right now with an accelerator program called QBio Innovation Hub, and you'd be perfect because you're bringing it from a startup perspective, but then also from an investor. Because I do have investors speaking to them that are in their industry, but they're one-sided, right? They're speaking from an investor, which is good, but I think you're going to be really good when you get back. I'll ping you to see if you're available to spend 30, 45 minutes to kind of give them a walkthrough on the journey they need to take. Because from the webinar yesterday, and also you mentioned it again today, it's clicked clearly that the amount of work that needs to be done. But I think where Dealum comes in, it provides the structure to do that work. And you're right. Most of them they throw their name out there, and they're waiting for someone to say, "Hey, we're ready to invest," and they don't realize that's just not how it works, right? We all wish that would be. I think social media gives you a false sense of of how easy it could be or should be. So,
Absolutely.
so thank you for that. Now, going into founder readiness. Um, Here at Headway, I often say that founders do not fail because of bad ideas. Um, it's a bunch of other things. They do fail, I think, because of many different things. Part of it is the founder, their ability to execute things strategically, but also if they're not investor ready. I mean, if they've done all the things right and they still can't get um, access to funding, what I call they fail. I say they fail a lot of times because they're not investor ready. And investor ready doesn't mean, in my opinion, they just haven't got money. It means they're just not ready as an entity, as an organization, as a startup to receive funding. What are your ideas? How do you see that in what I'm saying from your perspective?
I so I do agree and I do a little bit disagree. Some
Okay.
founders do fail because of ideas, but it's not even because their idea was wrong, but
Hmm.
sometimes it's aspect of luck and timing. Sometimes you have great idea and it's too early and you can do whatever you want and you will never get funding because no one can understand what the hell you're doing because you're so much ahead of your time. But
Yeah.
I do agree that some founders fail because they're not ready for investment, not because they don't know how investment works or how to talk to investors. Sometimes they are not investable as a business because I think lately, in the past 5 to 10 years, being a startup founder has been glorified, and you can see all of the news and social media and everyone closing rounds and, oh, I want to do the same thing and I have the greatest idea. But investors don't look, well, obviously they look for great ideas, but they're also looking how you will return money, and not every business is a venture investment case, because you need to understand, if you take venture money, everyone who put money into you expects you to grow exponentially, almost exponentially. Everyone wants to see a hockey stick, and this is what you're going to be pushed to do, and not every business can deliver such results, and not every founder is fit to do this. You need to have a specific mindset, and you need to be able to, unfortunately, grind and dedicate a lot of time to the business and sacrifice a lot of things along the way. So I do agree, not every startup is ready for investors, and obviously those who are just not ready, they are not ready. It can be fixed, and sometimes it can't be fixed. And also, by the time you fix the issues, or, well, you educate yourself, it's
Yeah.
not an issue, it's just you don't know what you don't know. By the time you educate, the the market has shifted, and no one needs this product that you have built, or someone else has overtaken you and they are a market leader and you can't really compete with them anymore.
Yeah, no, that's good. And so, yes, I agree with you 100%. And I think maybe the way I explain, so investor ready to me is also same thing. I look at their exit strategy, because if they don't have a good, clear exit strategy, it's not investor ready. I look at their go-to-market strategy. I look at their early adoption, um, and then a few of their other strategic strategies regarding competition, um, customers, and where are they in regards to what leverage do they have in regards to a strong value proposition. But no, that was good. I like the way you explain that. It's clear. It's a little bit more detailed than how I defined being investor ready. So from Dealum's perspective, what characteristics do investors consistently respond positively to? So looking at from Dealum's perspective, you must be getting some sort of feedback from investors, and understanding or knowing what investors respond positively to when it comes to the interest of investing in a startup.
I think we touched upon a few things already, but I think one of the most important parts as a first time you take a look is clarity. If you're looking at Dealum application, you can do Dealum application as a founder in so many different ways. But unfortunately, the volumes of applications that investors receive is huge. And that means that you scan the application, and if you don't understand what they're doing, what is their value proposition, what are the numbers, you are more likely to pass. So the clarity on what you're doing, who is it for, how you're going to make money, or how you're already making money, is probably one of the most important things. It goes for Dealum application, it goes for your pitches, it goes for your decks. And also, I think it's important to note if you are, let's say, B2B SaaS startup, you can apply to almost any investor unless they are very niche vertical focused. But what you need to understand that those who are reviewing decks and applications are also people, and they can't know everything about everything. So if you can't explain what you do in a way that your grandma understands, that can be a big downside. So clarity, but also investors are looking for hard numbers. I think ecosystem and investment changed quite a bit in the past years. If previously you can paint a pretty picture and convince investors to give you money on a vision, now it doesn't work this way. They are looking for hard numbers, clear ways for profitability. So it should be evidence over the narrative or a picture that you can paint. I think we also already touched upon founder credibility and coachability, because at the end of the day, you will be working with them. At the early stage, you probably work with them quite a bit as an investor because it's in your own benefit for them to succeed. So you will try to help them along the way. And if you provide some sort of feedback or try to help them and founders don't respond to it that well, that will be a clear flag as a no as well, because if founder is not coachable, you don't really want to work with them. And I mean, for as a Dealum users, they want to see a clean, clear profile. And my personal note, I also want to, as AI is so popular, as widely used, I mean, everyone uses AI to make their text more coherent, but please, God, please don't just copy paste from ChatGPT or Claude, just telling them, okay, this is my deck. Please reply to all of these questions, because we are not stupid. We can see it.
Yeah.
And then when the same thing that is in your deck being repeated over and over and over again, you lose all of the trust, because if you couldn't answer the questions in a clear, concise way just by typing and maybe grammar checking it with AI, that is also going to be a minus. So clarity, hard numbers, and founder coachability and credibility. So founder actually understands what they're doing, what is their market, and they can answer the questions.
Excellent. I am going to bring up this AI thing in a few minutes, but because you do hit on a big point, and yesterday I got a bunch of emails, and even in the middle of the night from one of my lawyers on some legal stuff we're working through, and it was AI generated, and I could tell right off the bat, and it was so disheartening.
I
Yeah.
I write newsletters for founders, so I do have a AI workflow, because generating so much content takes time.
Yeah.
And now I know how AI writes, and now I can't watch YouTube because I can hear when the scripts have been written by AI, and
Yeah.
it's painful.
It is. Yeah, that's something that is going to eventually have to be addressed, I think, globally when as we're communicating more with AI to one another, which is not good.
Mhm.
I'm going to go into the technology and relationships. And this is a good one. I think I only have one or two questions here, but how does Dealum help organizations through technology and relationships create long-term relationships between founders and investors?
Oh, that's a good question. I think centralizing, well, our value proposition is that you centralize everything in one place. And we help investors remember who you are, but at the same time, everyone who works on the investor side can chat with you. And for you, it's also centralized in one place. So there is a common point of communication because some investors do invest globally and you can't be present and talk to founders in person. So centralizing everything and track everything that goes on with the startup, this is how we create this long-term relationship. But also at the same time, if you are a diligent founder, you have received funding and you are reporting on Dealum to your investors, or you're generally reporting to your investors, which you should be doing all the time because they can help you, and also because they need to report to investors as well. um, we help them do it in a more streamlined way, which means they can help founders much better, which means founders can succeed better. And also, if we think about Dealum as an ecosystem, you as a founder, you apply for accelerator, you have graduated the accelerator can pass on your deal to the angel group that is on Dealum in a nice way. They can just send your application, they can add whatever documents there. You as a startup still in the same platform, talking to the new investor that you just received a warm intro to through your previous investor, and you basically build upon that. Investors have their own networks on Dealum, and then they can help you as a startup just fundraise the next round, because again, everything is centralized. And when your friendly investor asks from an accelerator, oh, we're looking at one of your graduates, what is your opinion on them, or some sort of feedback, you can go back in history. You see, it's like, oh yeah, they applied, they were doing 2K MRR, they graduated with 10K MRR, they opened 2 new markets, and then they have been reporting to us, and we see that they have been growing well. But we also worked with them super closely in the program. They have been super coachable team, and they actually work well together. So everything is there, and it can help immensely if you utilize that ecosystem on Dealum.
Yeah. So no, that's good. And there's obviously some flexibility or a little bit more the accelerators can do than the startups can do. So part of this relationship also is being built by the accelerator, I presume, and then that provides some good support for the startup, because the startups can't directly reach out, or can they, to can they, the startups directly reach out to the investors and build a relationship, or is that typically through an accelerator?
Both. We do so we give our customers an ability to be discoverable to startups. We have this matching
Okay.
system, and we match investors based on the criteria they put in their profile, what is their investment thesis, and we match startups to that. And that means that startup creates a profile, in 24 hours. If we find matches for them, they can go into discovery section and they can apply, review, and apply to investors that look relevant to them. So they can do that. Also, if startups go hunting for investors on the World Wide Web, that means they can come across investors who are using Dealum. They're not discoverable, but still apply button will lead you to Dealum. So there's ways to discover investors that are using Dealum without accelerators. But what brings so many accelerators to Dealum is exactly the fact that they can build relationships and help their graduates fundraise.
Yeah.
Because you can build your own solution that does all of the processes, selecting and running an accelerator. And we do have competition, but we have built this ecosystem with so many investors. And this is the biggest pain point, because if you want to support founders after graduation, you need to have investors. And how do you keep investors warm? How do you share the deals? Having one system where everyone lives and everything is uniform and centralized is our value proposition.
Awesome. Awesome. That's good. Good. Thank you for that. Uh, Looking ahead, how do you think AI will change or could positively be used for accelerator programs? If you were to say, here's how I suggest an accelerator would utilize AI, what would that be? What would that look like to you?
I don't have a suggestion how to use AI. I do think using AI is very beneficial. And it's also, you build your own workflow. I think everyone has their own workflow and how they talk to AI and how they use AI. But I think it can benefit accelerators quite a bit, because it's a very resource intensive process. You need to plan, you need to manage so many people, and it's so many moving parts, and it's so much massaging your keyboard, doing things. And if you remove this time consuming repetitive tasks and you outsource it to AI, and it can actually deliver relatively good results, then you can focus on working with founders, helping them get better, helping them get funded. Because at the end of the day, the human aspect is what helps founders, because they can ask ChatGPT how to do things and it will give semi good answer, but it's, when you're an accelerator, you have seen so many startups, you have been in the ecosystem, your insights are much better. And also talking to actual human is very important. So I think AI can help streamline boring tasks that can be outsourced. So people who work with founders can actually focus on helping them more.
No, very good. And I like the way you define that it's actually the human connection or the human component that actually helps the founders. And I agree with that 100%, because Headway has launched its own platform. We have a little bit of AI in there. It's limited. I decided to limit how much AI because I do not want people to depend on it. But even using it, I realized the human component is far more greater and effective than someone getting answers. It's literally not exactly, but it is. To me, it mimics getting the answers for an exam without doing any of the work, right? And there's a danger there when you go into real world execution. You got all these answers, they might be correct, but you have no idea how to truly apply them. And that's a dangerous thing. I think some school systems in the US they're going to run into that roadblock, or into that as the students graduate and go into the real world. They're going to realize that a lot of what they learned was given and it wasn't studied for and learned, which is interesting. Thank you for that. Some good wisdom here, and I really really appreciate it. Also, I appreciate your experience. You and I have had two different types of experiences with startups, and that this is good. This has actually filled in some gaps from my own journey in the startup ecosystem. So anyway, it's been a wonderful conversation today, and thank you very much for the work you've been doing in strengthening the startup ecosystem around the world. Um, for myself and Headway, I've truly enjoyed the relationship that we're building with Dealum. And again, my goal is to get more accelerators on Dealum. Now, why? Because um, it's because I care for the startups. And I jumped into this mission strictly for the startups when I first started working with startups in 2012. Uh, yeah, it was that was it, and that's my goal. As Headway, our focus is delivering program content and support to the accelerators. Now, I have a few more minutes here before we close, and so I have some what we call they're very random, but they're rapid fire questions, and not sure if you're ready for them. Uh,
Oh, bring it on. I'm
okay,
sure I can handle
okay,
it.
they're random, but it'll be good. Coffee or tea?
Tea, oh, coffee.
Okay, good. What's your favorite startup ecosystem you visited?
I'm in Europe and it's very random, but it's going to be Latvian ecosystem. They have been always friendly. They're doing good job and they're doing it with style, even though
Wow.
they're tiny and they're not performing maybe
Yeah.
that well, but I love them.
Oh, wow. Good, good. I'm gonna ask you for their name later. What's the best founder advice you've ever heard?
Talk to your customers. Don't build a perfect product and only then show it to your customers. Start building, start talking to them, start showing prototypes. Otherwise, you build a very pretty thing nobody wants.
Yeah, good. What is one book every entrepreneur should read? This one
Oh
I'm
man,
interested
I will recommend two because it's
in.
like
Okay.
choosing favorite kids.
Yes.
One would be Never Eat Alone. It's
Okay.
about growing your keep having network and keeping it warm because you can have a huge network, but if you don't keep it warm, you can't turn to Wes with a question, what is the best accelerator that I can apply to? Because Wes doesn't even remember that we met somewhere. So
Yeah.
Never Eat Alone tells you how to approach it and how to keep your network warm. And it's all about humans because they can open so many doors.
Yeah.
And I heard that we're all three connections away, four connections away from each other. So the more people you know, the more people like you, the more doors they can open. And the second one would be Secrets of Sun Hill Road. I think
Okay.
before raising VC round, understanding what term sheets mean, what investors can put in, and what part of your soul you're signing off to the devil is very important. Because sometimes a tiny thing you didn't understand in the term sheet can result in you not getting any returns from a successful exit. Better
Awesome.
be prepared. Mhm.
Yeah, those are two good books that I've never heard of, so I'm going to go order them. Um, Excellent, excellent. What is one startup trend you're excited about?
It will sound counterproductive, but a desire to achieve some sort of work life balance
Okay.
because everyone glorifies hustle
Yeah,
and everyone wants to push as hard as they
yeah,
can to
yeah,
achieve as much as they can,
yeah,
but that can burn you out. And burned out founders don't really build startups, they just lie on the floor and die for 3 months.
yeah, yeah,
So having work-life balance, somewhat something that resembles that,
yeah,
and taking care of yourself, I think this is important,
yeah.
and this is the trend I like.
Yeah, good. Which one are you skeptical of? A trend that you're skeptical of?
Ooh, a trend that I'm skeptical of: building everything with AI.
Hmm. Yeah, same here.
Everyone everyone is trying to build new
Yeah.
AI something,
Yeah.
but either they just build something that kind of works without understanding what they have done, and then when you
Mm,
scale, it doesn't work and crumbles. But
mm,
also everyone is trying to get on a hype train. But to be honest, majority of investments into AI went into 5 companies, and we all know them, and they dominate. And also, it all might pop at some
yeah.
point as a bubble.
Wow.
So
I
I I
agree with
li-
you.
I like AI, but you try to be cautious and also try to think beyond building something AI, something hype word here, hype word there, because the landscape changes super fast and you need to adapt to it. And also you need to have long-term vision how it will look a year down the road, and also how you can make sure that big companies that we all know and use will not just accidentally release a feature that will take away your business.
Awesome. And last question, if you could fix one thing in the startups ecosystem, what would it be?
Trying to connect people and organizations, because there is competition in the
Hmm.
background going on, because everyone wants to invest in the most amazing startups and get
Yeah.
all of the returns for themselves. But I do believe that more connected and transparent and united ecosystem can grow more startups, and they can grow better startups. And as a result, the world can be a slightly better place.
Awesome. That is funny you mentioned that. That's totally funny because that's at a whole different conversation. That's what the why I built the Nomad for that exact reason. And yeah, cool. Anyway, thank you. Thank you a ton. This closes out our podcast. Again, my name is Wes Okeke of Headway Idea Labs, and our guest here is Darja from Dealum. And looking forward to hearing more about what Dealum is doing, but even more so, Darja, how you are navigating the startup ecosystem and bridging this gap between startups and investors. I think it's been phenomenal. Actually, I've learned a lot from you the past 2 days, and I hope to pass this on to our startups. Um,
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. It makes me feel that my experience is actually valuable, because accelerators are quite niche, and I can't sit and geek out about them and what is the best way to do them and what's their value that often. So it was very nice talking to you, and I do hope we together can help a lot of startups and build a better and more connected ecosystem.
yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.